item that we have is the Farmworker Wallet OS project proposal. So Jorge, I see that you are on the call. I thought maybe at this point I would just stop sharing my screen and turn this over to you so that you can walk us through the proposal, what it is that you're suggesting, and then we can ask some questions and see about getting some resolution to some of the questions that are out there. Does that sound okay to you?
Yeah, that sounds great. Thank you.
All right, I will stop sharing.
So I think good day, everyone. Excited to be here today and present our project. I guess we could start with Jesus, maybe to give a brief intro on the project. And
good morning, folks. Jesus Torres here with Entidad. Yeah, essentially the context for the project, for the Farmworker Wallet OS project, is that we've been working on this for 2 years, really building this wallet engine that could help us sustain a farm worker services ecosystem. And so the problem we were trying to solve with this is making it easier for organizations to be able to collect information in secure and privacy respecting ways from farm workers in order to facilitate the delivery of their services and resources. And so yeah, the team has been working on this for 2 years, and yeah, we're excited to collaborate with others to take this to expand adoption and usage of our work. So with that, I'll hand it over to Jorge.
yeah, apologies. I realized I needed to join the call from a different computer. So give me a second. I'll start by I'll share a link. I'm not sure if we posted a link earlier on the Discord, and this is a video recording of the wallet engine, and it demonstrates interoperability with 2 public SSI demo apps that are out there. So I don't know. I think we won't have time to run through a demo today. We could dive in. The idea is just to walk through the project and kind of explain what is a low-code wallet, and I guess we'll get started. So okay, you can see my screen. Yeah.
Yep, looks good.
So so our project, we've been working on building a platform that can enable nonprofit organizations and public service providers to better serve underserved communities, right? There are communities like the farm worker community, which is the focus of our work over the last couple of years, largely immigrant demographic, work in remote areas, geographic areas here in the US, speak varying languages, Spanish being predominant, but there's indigenous languages. So there's a digital divide, digital literacy context that we've been trying to work around. And early on, we realized that in order to be able to scale the impact for these organizations using technology, that because of the immigration status, problem statement, right? There's a huge sensitivity around data privacy. And so we we followed the digital trust kind of movement and kind of attached to that very early, as we saw that it was a mechanism for really trying to give users better control of their data, have more transparency in the exchange of information, and enable organizations to have more direct peer-to-peer, end-to-end encrypted kind of communication and data exchange between them. And so over that time, we also realized that it's expensive, these technologies, right? There's very competitive landscape out there, software development. To gain and attract talent, it's very competitive, and so how do you get to market quickly? How do you get to build solutions that are considered high grade in terms of enterprise adaptability and security? And so we looked at low code as an enabler. I personally come from a low code background. I've spent the entirety of my career working in low code environments, and so I'm a huge proponent, and there are many examples of low code platforms out there in the industry. And the tool that we've chosen to work with is Mendix. This is a large low platform provider. Mendix promotes a community of 300,000 developers, something like that. It's pretty big footprint in Europe, and it's been a great enabler for us to be able to achieve the work that we've been able to deliver to our stakeholders over the last couple of years. So the low code wallet, I think that a visual is important, and thank you, Stacy, for making the recommendation on the feedback. So I don't, this diagram that I put together is very detailed. There's a lot going on here, but I was hoping that we could just kind of run through it to really understand the big picture in terms of what is the code contribution, what is how does that work within a low code context, and what do we have available today. So we've developed a series of solutions within the Mendix platform, and Mendix, the way it works is that it has a design time component, a model-driven environment where developers, whether they be citizen developers, business analysts, anybody can really download the tool and start to build apps in a model-driven way. So you get a series of pre-existing functionality that you drag onto your screen and you wire them together to build logic, and at the end of the day, you run a series of tooling that Mendix provides to take that model, that application model, and run it through an interpreter so that it can be packaged in a way that when it's deployed to a Mendix runtime, it executes and runs. If the application is a web app that you have the option of deploying, it's a React app that runs on a browser on a Java backend. In the case of the wallet engine that we're proposing to contribute initially, it's a React Native app that you get the facility to bundle your app model and deploy that to either an iOS distribution or an Android distribution. And that's what we have. So it's built on top of the Aries framework JavaScript. And so it supports anything that the Aries framework JavaScript is supporting. Current state version 0.4.0, we're up to date on that. So we've been able to get that migrated to that latest revision over the last couple of weeks. So I'll show you here the project is what we have here, this demo app Mendix on the right-hand side, demo app. So that's a project that there's a GitHub repo where this project is maintained. It's a private repo, which means that you have an option. Mendix provides an option to run source control on a team server, an SVN server that Mendix manages for their customers. But there's also a Git option, and so this here is listed as a private server, which means that it's a Git repo that currently we own, and we can build our application. So it's model based, model driven. You see there's different modules here, so there's allows you to modularize your development. And the two main components that we were looking at, what we call core wallet engine components, right? There's concept of the Aries SDK, which is the core functionality that the Aries framework JavaScript provides. And then there's a KMS. So it's a lightweight key management system that allows the Mendix developer to store sensitive information locally on a device, on a device, iOS or Android. On iOS it would be the keychain. On Android would be the key store. And then we have a third module, which is the Aries test harness, which is the demo that we have. If you look at that YouTube video, you'll see an example of run through of that demo executing credential exchange and connection exchange protocols with two public and widely known, I think, SSI demonstrations from the BC Gov and NMO. So here's the app running locally on an emulator on my machine, and so I'm running the app entirely locally on my machine. I can connect another instance of the app running on my phone. Let's see. So this demo app, basically, if you're familiar with Aries or the Aries RFCs, all of the major protocols defined in those RFCs are currently implemented, and we have a lightweight UI that serves the purpose of being able to allow a user to walk through those various exchange protocols. So a connection invitation, you can invite someone to join or to create a peer-to-peer connection. You can scan QR codes like credential offers or proof presentation requests. You can view your connections. You can view your messages. So Aries supports DITCOM, and so you can have privacy preserving end-to-end encrypted DITCOM messaging, DITCOM chat. That's built in, and then you would have the ability to see your credentials as well. So I'm just waiting for my phone to finish loading. Are there any questions?
So if we go back to this diagram, the contribution that is being proposed here is the stuff in purple, is it? And that would include a reference implementation that is the Aries test harness, the demo app Mendix, and the demo native template. Is that everything in this box that you're looking at, the OWF GitHub project, is stuff that would be in the source base?
Yeah, everything in the right hand in this box labeled OF project, OFW project. So these boxes here under GitHub project, these are repos, and individual repos, all of this would be moved over, contributed, and including if we wanted to, the native template, which is, it's a declaration, a configuration that allows you to then build a distribution of the apps that you can upload to the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store, which we have running, right? So this is on my local machine. I have an APK that we've built that is giving the developer, a ready-made wallet app that you can install on your device or on any emulator, and you can immediately test the functionality with within a few minutes of getting started. So I've added a cheat sheet here of the steps that a developer, someone new coming in, you'd go to the GitHub and you immediately you would connect your Studio Pro. You, after installing Studio Pro, you'd connect it to Open App, and then you would do Open Private App, and you would enter the GitHub address, right? So that would be the URL of the main demo repo. That is the project that I'm showing here on the Studio. So with this, you can run the entire app locally. The Studio Pro, which is, again, this is the developer environment. It's fully contained, so you can run an entirely decentralized SSI app here on your local machine. So that's what I'm doing now. I'm running, and if I make changes, I can commit. I can do merge requests, and to just show you a little bit about a little more of the Mendix and the model, right? You're configuring things like your data model. It's called domain model, which is there's a backend database. In this case, it's PostgreSQL. That a developer comes in here, defines their data entities. These are equivalent to data tables, and the lines between these entities are associations. So you have one to many, many to many, one to one. And when you hit deploy, when you package this to run in the runtime, Mendix takes this model and interprets it, compiles it into its runtime language, so that you can run the app, including the provisioning of the data model on the respective database that you've selected as a developer. So it's low code in that sense, in that a developer is dragging and dropping things from the available resources. If you're building logic like orchestration logic, you would do that in what's called the microflow. For those of you familiar with BPMN, you would see a similarity here in the modeling style of business process activities. But to add a new widget, you'd go here, to add activity. There's also a toolbox. So here's all the pre-built activities from various connectors or plugins that do different things, right? So there's a workflow engine. You have business rule activities. If you want to write your own, you need to write your own custom code in Java. You can write a Java action. If it's a React, like a client-specific thing you want to do in the UI, presentation is done in pages. So we'll look up some of the examples here of a page, and you drag and drop, page elements, and you configure as you go.
Jorge, I think we have a question here.
Yes.
Go ahead, David.
Thank you. I had one question, but I then got another while I was listening. Absolutely fascinating. Thank you. If you wanted to connect one of these apps to an external source, could you build what I would call an adapter that could manage the interaction with the external source? and plug that into Mendix as an extension that the app
Absolutely.
can use.
Absolutely. Yeah. In fact, that's one of the value propositions for us as developers. You know, we're a early stage startup. You know, we have a very small team, and so we don't have the capacity to build all. You know, there's a lot of things that need to be built in support of an ecosystem, right? And so things like address validation, storing documents in an S3 bucket. Mendix has a pretty large marketplace. It's a public marketplace where you would find a suite of solutions pre-built, readily available for developers to bring into their environment. And so we have a suite of marketplace components that we've developed ourselves. If you go to the public marketplace, you would find examples of connectors, solution templates,
Right.
widgets, all kinds of things that are readily available. Some of them are commercially available, so meaning there's a cost associated to using them. There's a very large number of components that are available as open source, Apache 2, and other types of licenses that are open source, freely available.
Okay. The second question was, is there any, I will call it, carried obligation in the runtime or the web app that you might be producing that places an obligation on the organization that's using it back to Mendix? Or is it effectively the intellectual property of the generated app or code that comes out of Mendix belongs to the subscriber, or could be even made open source itself?
That's right. Yeah, Mendix claims no intellectual property on the application model, right? So anything that a developer builds within the Studio environment, the Studio Pro environment, the developer environment, this is intellectual property owned by the developer, the author of the model.
Right.
Mendix provides, it's an infrastructure provider, right? So they make it easy for a developer to come in and build delightful customer experiences on React-based apps. It also supports progressive web apps and native apps, right? So you build your model, and that's yours. You deploy it using Mendix tooling to package that up so you can deploy it in a Mendix runtime. And Mendix provides a cloud infrastructure called the Mendix Cloud. It's a public cloud managed by Mendix. It makes it easy for developers to deploy their apps into an enterprise-grade infrastructure. It's built on Cloud Foundry, so it's their Cloud Foundry build pack, which I linked to in the comments here on the GitHub. But you can see how Mendix would how the runtime is actually working. But yeah, Mendix obviously makes money in managing this infrastructure for its customers. A lot of customers opt for private cloud, so they take the Cloud Foundry build pack and deploy it into their own private data centers or their private clouds.
Great. Thank you very much.
So Stacy, back to your question, everything in this box, the purple and the red would be handed over would be in the context of this project contribution.
Okay.
And over time, there'd be additional components that would be added, right? As OpenWallet Foundation is in the process of trying to define what are those core components that would define a wallet engine, right? As more clarity is established on that front, we would make every effort to implement the Mendix version of those components and make those components available as well. I keep wanting to click the screen on my. Okay, so I'm just gonna run through a quick example of the. So I'm gonna. So Alice and Bob are standing next to each other, and they want to establish a connection. So we've got a connections. And then that's this is DidCom chat, right? It's packaged in the Aries framework JavaScript, and it's a simplified UI for demonstrating the capability, right? But obviously you would want to, you know, a developer who would want this capability embedded in their Mendix app would take this module and, you know, put it embedded in their app over here on the left-hand side, like an example, our Preparas app. And, you know, you'd apply whatever styling, whatever UI, UX, customizations you'd want to that on top of that pre-canned capability.
So Jorge, I think the other questions that I had in kind of the review comments were around just the license. And I think that's probably something that we would want the LF legal team to take a look at, just to make sure that there's no concerns with that particular license. So I think we should reach out to Scott or whoever the right person is. Jen, maybe you can help us connect with the LF legal team just on the licensing.
Sure.
Okay, and then I think the diagram really helped to understand better kind of the contribution and what it is that you're looking to contribute. I think those were the major questions that I had. I think, David, your question was definitely a question of mine as well, which is, you know, understanding kind of the rights that somebody has after they create their application in Mendix, and you know, would that application be able to be licensed as Apache 2 or licensed under whatever license it is that they would like to have. So I think that was definitely a question that I had. Other questions that anybody has on the proposal or what the suggested contribution is? Troy?
Tracy, this is Zohair. Sorry, I think Troy had his hand up.
Okay, let's go, Troy, and then we'll get to you, Zohair.
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll also have to figure out a logistical detail. I mean, there's several repos here, so how we'd appropriately name this so that you know, multiple projects implementing something similar, perhaps in different languages, or targeting not DidCom but other protocols, have an appropriate naming space in GitHub. I mean, it's not necessarily directly related to this, but I'm just pointing it out because there's half a dozen repos here, and some of them are pretty generically named, and some of them have Mendix in it. So we'd have to probably come up with a better convention for that. So that's one thing. And then I think when we get into the details, just understanding what Aries SDK Mendix means versus the Aries SDKs that are over at Hyperledger, like what precisely is the difference between those, that kind of detail would be interesting as well.
Yeah, it's quite simple. So the Aries SDK, Aries is, you know, there's various flavors of Aries. There's Go, there's Python, and the one we're using is JavaScript. So the Aries SDK is the Mendix wrapper around those JavaScript, that JavaScript code, right? So logic, including the domain model, including you know, microflow. These are the worker. This is a worker thread that is doing HTTP calls, it's doing serialization of JSON responses coming back, webhooks that are coming back from Aries agents, all of the processing. So it's the Mendix wrapper around an Aries agent. And this is a plug and play component, meaning it's meant to be a standalone module that implements all of the Aries capabilities. And we would publish this to the Mendix marketplace so that a developer who's building their own Mendix app, would look to see if there's any digital wallet engines available in the marketplace. They would find ours and they download it into their app and immediately be able to leverage that functionality, right? So, but yeah, I understand the naming might cause a little confusion. The reason for the naming was that I was just trying to make it easier for folks not familiar with Mendix and folks not familiar with Aries to kind of understand, the different components that we've developed and the functionality that they're providing. But I do agree that the way we position in our project is that there would be a suite of modules, of components that would be developed in Mendix. And these are really what we're talking about is app models, right? App models that may reside in their own repos. So yeah, we would have to understand exactly the structure of how to maintain those varying repos within the context of a single project.
Troy.
Yeah, I think someone else was going to speak up, but it's just, the follow-up is I didn't really think about the, I guess Mendix is a proprietary, not open source target, right? So this is basically a commercial target, and I haven't really thought about the implications of that, right? Because a lot of times I see the language suffix attached to these things, like Python or JavaScript or Go or whatnot, and I haven't actually thought at all about the the idea of a low code proprietary target and what the implications would be. So I think that's maybe related also to the license comments that people brought up before.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, low code is new to a lot of folks, but it's also a lot of people doing low code, right? And you can think of it as another implementation type, another programming language, right? At the end of the day, you have resources that are made available after development efforts, and you have to deploy your app. If we were building in JavaScript directly, we would have to stand up a cloud account in AWS or Azure and stand up infrastructure to run that node, right? And all the DevOps, all the site reliability work, Mendix does that all for you in simple push of a button. And that's a huge enabler for especially in our scenario where we're working with nonprofit organizations that have low budgets. Their budgets are based on philanthropic donations and a lot of effort to raise these and so the investment being made, which is this is a full-fledged distributed solution that we have here, and by making it available in this context, other organizations who are interested in this technology and either don't have the resources to hire an army of developers to build a digital trust infrastructure, you could get started very quickly. And maybe today we're not in the high assurance categorization of digital trust wallets in terms of like the security and the cryptographic protocols that are supported, but for low assurance scenarios, maybe that's where we think we can make an impact. Organizations that are trying to engage with their communities, right? Providing cash assistance, providing free meals and food distributions, assisting in the completion of an immigration service form with USCIS, right? So these are different use cases that that kind of domain that, you know, organizations could easily, you know, plug in and take advantage of the investment that's been made, not only from us and our stakeholders, the UF30 Foundation, but in the case of Aries, right, there's huge investment by a lot of folks over the last few years, and you know, and this is a way to help grow that ecosystem, and we're really excited about the opportunities for growing this footprint.
All right, so I see that we're at time. So here, I know you had a question, maybe we
Yeah,
can.
Tracy, I've got a client call that I need to jump off for, but
That's
I think it was really in the same vein as Troy's sort of last comment about 2-3 minutes ago, which is really around the implication of tethering apps to Mendix. I mean, I came across Mendix in 2015, 16, that kind of time frame. You know, it's one of many low-code, no-code platforms. It's a very good one. You know, it's top right Gartner quadrant, but you know, there are others, OutSystems and Appian and others. And yeah, it's just really around the implications of kind of, you know, it's a low-code sort of developer / citizen developer environment. And I'm kind of just wondering why that's necessarily the kind of the mainstay of you know, the OpenWallet Foundation. But yeah, it's just around implications of that.
All right,
Similar to Troy.
so maybe what we could do, Jorge, is do a few updates to the proposal to comment on some of these things that have been asked about in the meeting. And then as far as the next thing, really just, you know, other folks to comment on the proposal, right, to get any other additional thoughts. We'll also sync up with the Linux Foundation legal. We may also have to include the OpenWallet Foundation board on the license to understand, you know, if that license is an acceptable license. And then, yeah, I guess for next steps, next meeting is 2 weeks from now on July 26th. So I guess with that, we'll close out the meeting and thank Jorge and Jesus for the presentation. I think there's a lot of good information in here, and I'm sure there'll be a lot more questions on the proposal now that we've got the intro.
Awesome, thank you all.
All right, thanks everyone.